Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Polish composer, arranger, and producer Milosz Konarski. I caught up with him on July 16, 2021 from his base in Poland to discuss the project Charlie Parker Plays Bossa Nova. What if? The whole project is an attempt to answer the question posed by Haruki Murakami, the question about how Charlie Parker would have sounded if he had not died in 1955, but after several years of recovery, he returned to playing the saxophone, and in 1963, when it was popular, what if he released a Bossa Nova album? This audio is an answer, and his story is fascinating. Enjoy.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for taking a minute out.
Okay, thanks for inviting me.
You bet. So this whole story here, I mean, even the fact that we're talking right now, this fictional account of Charlie Parker playing Bossa Nova, I'm fascinated by the story, and obviously, you know, you're in Poland, I'm here in Kansas City where Charlie Parker's from. What a great story.
You have read it?
Yes, I did.
And how you enjoy it? Did you know any of Murakami works before?
No, I didn't. There is a music critic that lives in Kansas City that does a lot of really good reviews of books and music, and he had it on his website, so I requested a copy from the publisher and an interview with the author, which he doesn't do interviews, but I read the story and I was just fascinated, so I did a search to see if anybody actually had this music, and you came up, and I listened to it. It was actually the 4th of July. I was out with my family, and we were listening to it, and they were like, what is this? And I said, someone actually did Charlie Parker doing Bossa Nova. And I actually got...
That's a great story, really.
Yeah, and I actually got a kid that came over that was 19, and he said, who's Charlie Parker? What's Bossa Nova? So I totally enlightened somebody on two huge things right there. So it's been a really good story.
And it's all because of one book and really one short story, because it's all because of that.
Isn't that amazing?
That's incredible. That's incredible, really.
It really is. So the thing that fascinates me is I can just see him in that record store in New York looking at it, and I can totally imagine this whole thing happening, and you've reimagined it. It's almost like the album covers like the Beatles' White Album.
Yeah, exactly. You know, before I was a musician, because I have a master's degree in composition arrangement in jazz music here in Poland, in Katowice. But before, when I was a teenager, I was also very passionate reader, and I read a lot, like really a lot. My favorite authors was Haruki Murakami. He often in his books, in his works, connects story with some music piece. It's not only a jazz piece, because, for example, in his, I think, the most famous book trilogy, 1Q84, he was writing about some adventures, and also the very important role in these books led the Sinfonietta, a classical piece music by Czech composer Janacek. Nobody knew this piece of music because it was really rarely known ever, but because Haruki Murakami wrote about it, and this book sells really very well worldwide, the music was again discovered by people all over the world, and they were starting to listen it. And very often in his works, Murakami is writing about some classical or jazz music, because he was also a jazz bar owner in Tokyo before he was a writer. So he really knows how to describe music, and he does it really well with his words and his passionate language. He can describe it as you were there and hearing this. So when in the last year the short story collection came out in Japan, then in Poland, and one of the short story was entitled Charlie Parker Plays Bossa Nova, and you read it, so you know how well it's described with the words. I almost feel like I hear the music he was describing. thanks to the fact that it was during another lockdown and the studio that I run and I work in music studio, we had a lot of free time, let's say that. I was able to use the time and make my own project, imagining how Charlie Parker would sound like playing Bossa Nova. Of course, I as a composer, as arranger, would do nothing without my version of Charlie Parker. And it was Wojtek Rejdych, my friend, from a lot of bands that we played all together. And when he first heard that idea, was really into it. He spent a lot of time both listening to Charlie Parker recordings, but also recordings of Antonio Carlos Jobim or Stan Getz. That was our inspirations. We were listening to, feeding our souls with, and then the CD and the whole music was a part of it, and a part of this. But we decided that we would not, because in the short story, Murakami wrote that Charlie Parker was playing some bossa nova hits, some standards that are very well known. We decided that maybe it's not a good idea to make this one more time, because everybody are playing those songs and everybody knows them. So we decided to go one step further and imagine how really our music can sound like, with that assumption that it was Charlie Parker and he played bossa nova.
Man, what a great story. You know, I think what's interesting about all of this that I've realized is maybe the power of Charlie Parker is powerful enough to have given this, you know, he talked about the dream towards the end of the story. Maybe Charlie really did want to push his earthly music further and used him as a medium. Have you ever thought about that?
I think that the idea that Haruki Murakami has, that if Charlie Parker would not have died, after years, I think he could have come back to playing, and I can imagine him playing bossa nova. Why not? He was very open-minded, and it is possible. And I'm really glad that I have this opportunity to test it out.
Have you heard from the author about this?
I wasn't in a contact with an author, but I have a very good contact with his Polish translator. It's really hard to get to the author, to Haruki Murakami. He appreciates his privacy, and it's not easy. But I was in a contact with his Polish translator, who is a close friend of him. Because it's Anna Zielińska-Elliot. Even it was, I sent her some CDs, we get some emails, and now in November we are having here in Poland some event that the music from the CD would be played live. It would be probably connected with a meeting with her, with some interview, and also a reading of this short story. So this will be really nice event. It's organized by one of the public libraries here in Poland, and it will be a really cool event connecting the world of music, world of literature, and everything else. So yeah.
That's beautiful, man. So have you gotten any other unique responses from around the world to this album and kind of this birth of something that's totally comes from a story?
Really, it was this album was kind of an experiment, because we would like to try how much we can see the interesting in it from the world, from the listeners, but without much promotion. But with our main tool in our mind was that the readers who have read the story would start to dig in, would start to listen, searching, and that way they come to our album. And it really works when you go on YouTube. There is the full album uploaded. A lot of comments are that they are not from some page, not from some reviews or anything. They all said that Mr. Murakami, that his work, his books brought me here. And that's really incredible.
Yeah. This is a wonderful story, and I am so glad that I ran into you and I ran into this album on YouTube, and I'm going to profile it on the show. So thank you for taking a minute out to talk about the story, the impact. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for a good talk. Have a nice day.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Poland, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Milosz for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.